All right, y'all. Hey, it's your girl Morgan Renee tuning in with another story time with more of mine. I'm out here by the lakeside, getting my crochet on, relaxing, enjoying the vibes. And so let me come on live and read this book. If you have not already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's my name, Morgan Myers, spelled Myers. You see a red logo with a yellow M on the inside that stands for my brand, More of My, because you're going to want more of my education, entertainment, creations, all of that jazz, okay? We are on chapter 20 of this book, Trying to Sleep in a Bed You Made by Virginia D. Berry and Donna Grant. So we're just going to hop right on into it. It says, "You were my last luck." For the next 3 days, Gail retreated behind her bedroom door. The phone's sudden ring upset her, so she unplugged it. She refused to talk to police. She ignored reason from her mother, frightened pleas from Vanessa, and the TV was her 24-hour companion. On the third night, Gail lapsed into agitated sleep, and Ramsey came to her. He stood on the lawn, dressed in pearly white clothes that glowed in the moonless night, and he whistled faster and faster. Gail ran circles around him, trying to keep up with his tune. She pulled at his clothes, called his name, but he wouldn't look at her. Then he floated off. "Ramsey, wait!" Gail cried out and bolted up, panting. The dream was so real, she stumbled out of bed and pulled open the curtains. Gail took it as a sign he was coming home. She showered, put on one of his favorite dresses, and by the time Loretta and Vanessa woke up, Gail had coffee brewing and the breakfast table set. Then she went to help Vanessa get ready for school. Vanessa looked confused as she came out of her bathroom in her underwear. "Mommy, you're not sick anymore?" "No, honey, I'm not sick. Get your comb and brush." "Give me your comb and brush." Gail eased out the tangle in her daughter's hair. "I guess your gram is out of practice on hair combing." "Is Daddy gonna die?" "No, Daddy's not gonna die." "Nessa, is that what you think?" Vanessa nodded slowly. "He's been in the hospital so long. I think he'll be here soon, maybe even today." Gail secured the end of the French braid with barrettes. "Now, finish dressing and get your breakfast." When Gail got to the kitchen, Loretta was at the table sprinkling sweetener in her coffee. "Well, you know something I don't?" "Uh-huh. I just remember that I can't give up hope." "Gail, you have to be doing something. Hoping don't make it so." "Mama, it'll be all right. And Ramsey will be here in time to explain where your money is, so I won't have to." In a few minutes, Vanessa saw and put down her chair. "Can I stay home from school and wait for Daddy, too?" She spooned sugar over cornflakes and bananas and watched her mother. "You most certainly cannot." Vanessa rolled her eyes and played at eating. "Did you do your homework?" Gail peered over the rim of her juice glass. "You haven't been caring if I did my homework." Vanessa bounced the heel of her sneaker indignantly against the chair leg and sloshed her spoon around in the bowl. "Vanessa, stop making a..." Loretta jumped in. "Of course she cares, honey. Your mommy hasn't been feeling so good. But we're sure glad she's better, aren't we?" Vanessa shoved her bowl away, spilling milk and soggy cereal. "Yeah, I guess so." She snatched her back and disappeared out the door. Open mouthed, Gail stared after her. "What do you expect? Her father's nowhere to be found. You hole up in your room and won't talk to her, and she's losing her best friend. Of course the child is upset. You have to be strong. Teach her how to be strong." "I know. I'll do better. And when Ramsey gets back, if you know when that's gonna happen, I wish you'd tell that detective woman who's been calling every day. She's getting on my nerves. Miss Banks left a lot of messages too. I'll call them both after I clean this mess up." "Have you thought about talking to a lawyer?" Loretta asked. "Mama," Gail cautioned, "I will not have this conversation." "Fine, have it your way." Loretta turned her attention to her coffee. Mrs. Banks was in a hellacious mood when Gail called. "Everybody and his brother is calling here, blessing me out, looking for money. Please give him a little more time." Gail didn't know what else to say. "Mrs. Hillard, that's all it's going to be. A little." Detective Stuckey apologized for all the questions she had to ask about the money irregularities at Greener Pastures. "This is a lot like a puzzle. The only way we can solve it is to fill in the blanks." Bottom line, though, she had no leads. For weeks, Gail maintained her usual routine, keeping up appearances the way Ramsey always expected. She paid the utility bills from her checking account and ignored Loretta's cautions about spending. "We have plenty to get by on," Gail lied. When her mother broached the subject of a job, Gail dismissed it. "Ramsey doesn't want me to work," and that was that. Her head promptly went back in the sand. Once she came in the empty house and got chills, overwhelmed by the sensation that Ramsey was there. It was like she could feel him, smell his aftershave. "Ramsey, where are you?" she called. She ran to the den, up to their bedroom. "How could you just disappear?" She sank onto the bed. "And what would I say if you answered?" Gail had to let the housekeeper go. Loretta helped with the cleaning, and items were more out of place than before. Gail was sure she put her engagement ring in the crystal box on her dresser as usual, but she didn't have the heart to complain when she couldn't find it, especially since more than $80,000 of Loretta's was missing. It'll turn up. Vanessa grew more sullen and withdrawn by the day. Gail made sure she was clean, fed, and chauffeured, but kept her in the dark about her father. Why should I confuse her? Gail filed her nails, and Loretta watched TV. Vanessa was in her room doing homework, and Ramsey had been gone 5 weeks. Loretta hit the mute button on the remote. You know, keeping a secret was the worst mistake your daddy and I made in raising you. Gail looked up from her base coat. She and her mother didn't talk about that. They had made their peace, and one of the provisions of the unspoken treaty was to let it lie. Why bring this up now? You didn't make a mistake, and I'm not making one either. When you were old enough to understand, you had a right to the truth. Your daddy would have told you, but I didn't want you or anybody else to know you weren't my blood child. You and Daddy were protecting me, and Vanessa's too young to worry about this. She's already worried. Can't you see it? What if she hears it from somebody else? You know what happened when you found out the truth. Don't you want to spare your own child from feeling that? I wasn't protecting you, baby. I was protecting me, and that's what you're doing with Vanessa. Gail didn't answer her and went back to her nails, her head poked deeper in the sand. In early November, Mrs. Banks quit, and the week before Thanksgiving, the Marshal padlocked greener pastures. Almost daily, the mail carrier brought stacks of mail for it from the business, and Gail signed for registered letters addressed to Ramsey. She kept them neatly stacked and unopened in a drawer of the break front. Bessie called once. I'm checking on that rusty old man of yours. I haven't seen him for a while. He's not still in the hospital? No, he's been kind of busy, Bessie. She considered telling him, but decided the fewer people who knew, the better. Tell him I was asking for him, and you tell him to bring you in here. I haven't seen your lovely face in far too long. Days later, Gail and Vanessa were on their way out when Detective Teresa Stuckey showed up at the back door. There's a few things I want to run by you. Is that your daughter? What a beauty. You'll have your hands full when she gets older. She smiled at Vanessa, who shot her a "Who are you?" look. Thank you, Gail said. Nessa, go out and wait for me by the car. She slunk away with a toss of her ponytail. We've established that your husband was a regular at a restaurant in White Plains called Bessie's. Are you familiar with it? Stuckey looked down at her nose. Bessie and Ramsey, they have been friends for years. We both went to the restaurant. Mrs. Hillard, Bessie Austin runs one of the biggest bookie operations in the state. Controls all the book, horses, numbers, and sports actions from Westchester to the Canadian border and then some. She looked at Gail, waiting for a response. Bessie? My husband doesn't gamble anymore. He used to, but Mrs. Hillard, Bessie's a powerful and dangerous man. We haven't been able to catch him with his hands dirty, but you should keep your distance. It's very likely that both your husband's assault and disappearance are linked to him. I spoke to Bessie a couple of days ago. He wanted to know how Ramsey was doing. Bessie couldn't possibly have anything to do with this. I bet. Did you tell him anything? No. This is a little awkward, but our information is telling us Mrs. Hillard's recent misfortunes are linked to a special betting line Bessie ran for the World Series that went sour. Apparently your husband was involved. I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm sure Ramsey doesn't either. Am I? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses. That can make nasty enemies. It boils down to the fact that we're looking for Mr. Hilliard, but so are they. I hope we find him first. Who told you Ramsey was involved? They could be making a scapegoat out of him. Mrs. Hilliard, let me assure you my interest. And if you find him first, are you going to bring him home or arrest him? The department wants to get your husband home safely. As far as any connection to Bessie Austin, our sources are reliable. It looks like your husband got in over his head. It happens. We don't plan to charge him, but Austin doesn't forgive or forget. If Mr. Hilliard can help us get Austin, it will keep a lot more people out of trouble, including himself. So if you hear from either one of them, I'd appreciate it if you give me a call. Detective Stuckey walked down the drive and got in her unmarked car. Ramsey? Bessie? I don't believe it. It doesn't make sense. Undeterred, Gail went shopping for ingredients to make Ramsey's favorite Thanksgiving dishes. That Tuesday, the school principal called to tell Vanessa had been suspended for fighting. When Gail got there, Vanessa was waiting in the office, red-eyed, hair disheveled, and scraped across her cheek. Her blouse was torn, and her blood speckled the collar. Gail felt disconnected, as if this was someone else's problem child, not the daughter who had a fairy tale room in a dream house. Gail missed her way through a very uncomfortable parent-teacher conference. It seems Vanessa had become lackadaisical. She wasn't participating in class, her work was slipping, and now the fight. Not my child. Gail folded her hands in her lap and stared at the chalkboard, her blinders firmly attached to her rose-colored glasses. But when the teacher offered counseling services, if there was anything going on at home, Gail was momentarily blinded by the harsh glare of reality, and it made her mad. That won't be necessary, Gail answered dryly. She simmered in silence in the car, but by the time she got home, she had reached a rolling boil. What do you have to say for yourself? Brawling in the halls like a hoodlum? Vanessa hunkered down in the kitchen chair. Your only job is to go to school and get good grades, and you can't even do that. Vanessa Josephine, your father works hard to give you everything. What would your father say? Vanessa rolled her eyes and folded her arms across her chest. My father couldn't care less, wherever he is. May I be excused? No, you may not, young lady. Answer me. Why were you fighting? Vanessa fidgeted with the handle of the pepper mill. Gail snatched the mill from Vanessa's hands. Well, she stared down at her hands for several seconds. Monica said, Monica, you were fighting with your friend? She's not my friend. Now that Keisha's gone, I don't have any friends. Anyway, Monica's a liar. Vanessa slouched and glared at Gail. She said, Daddy's a crazy coot who, the hard, defiant shell around Vanessa's crack, who ran away and left us, and I could find him if I wanted to on a wanted poster in the post office. Vanessa sucked on her bottom lip, and sad, hurt tears spilled down her cheeks. You know that's not true. And then Gail stopped. She didn't know if it was true or not, and all Vanessa had to go on was the fractured fable her mother had concocted because Gail refused to consider a less than happy ending. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. Gail scooped her daughter into her arms. Vanessa sobbed, and Gail's own tears dropped silently on Vanessa's hair. Mommy, I didn't mean to. It's okay. This is my fault. I was protecting me. Let's get in my bed and talk. Vanessa curled her long, slender legs under her and settled into the pillows piled against the headboard. Gail opened the drapes for the first time in weeks, then sat near the footboard, facing her daughter. Fading afternoon sun streamed across the bed. Gail looked into Vanessa's puffy eyes and found all the fear and sadness she had spent 10 years guarding her against. I have to tell her the truth. First, don't you ever forget you're the most important thing in the world to me, and I won't ever leave you. Ever. Your father has a sickness. Aren't they making him well in a hospital? No, baby, this is something else. It makes him do things we might not understand. Is that why he acts so weird sometimes? Probably. I'm not exactly sure myself. Gail explained what had happened as best she could, including the fact that they probably have to move. Daddy ran away and left us? With nothing? Vanessa looked distraught. Then he doesn't love us, so I don't love him anymore either. Vanessa, don't talk like that. Your father loves you, and I love him till it makes me sick of myself. Gail didn't want to admit it, but Ramsey still made her dizzy, and whatever he had done, she wanted to know he was safe. They would work it out. What are we going to do now? Vanessa asked. Gail surprised herself. First, I'm going to get a job. But you have never worked before. I was assistant manager at a store before you were born, young lady. A store? Vanessa scrunched up her face. You mean like at the mall? Yes. Will you really be okay, Mommy? Vanessa looked up at Gail. Of course. It won't be easy, but we'll be fine. Vanessa snuggled down in the pillows and was asleep in minutes. Gail listened to Vanessa's deep, even breaths and prayed for strength. Ramsey had been their champion. Don't worry, be happy. That was the deal. He kept them worry-free. She kept him happy. Now he was gone. All she could see were worries, and Vanessa was her responsibility. Alone. She ran her thumb over Vanessa's eyebrows, then covered her with an Afghan. Downstairs, Gail found her mother in the living room reading her daily word. I heard you two, but I thought I'd leave you to yourselves. I told you, Mama, the truth. It was hard. I told her, Mama, the truth. It was hard. Gail perched on the ottoman at Loretta's feet and put her head in her mother's lap. Nessa took it better than I thought. Loretta shut her magazine and took off her reading glasses. It wasn't so bad because Nessa already knew deep inside, just like I know Ramsey took my money. Gail's head jerked up. Mama, you don't have to say it, Gail. I know. Have for a while now. Oh, Mama, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry for what you didn't do. I knew you couldn't talk about it, and you were more important to me than money. We'll get by. Gail spoke, her voice muffled by the soft cotton fabric of her mother's house dress. Mama, when Daddy told me how you got me, that my own mother threw me out with the garbage, I felt like I must have done something to deserve it. I don't want Vanessa believing that whatever is going on with Ramsey is somehow her fault. Gail, look at me. Loretta lifted Gail's chin. Then you have to make sure she won't. Tell her what she can understand. I expect we're in for some rough times. Vanessa has no idea what sacrifice is. Neither do you, for that matter. I'm out of practice, but I haven't completely forgotten. You're going to need all the help you can get, so don't leave her out. He's not coming back, is he, Mama? For Loretta, Gail was 7 years old again, asking if there was really a Santa Claus. No matter how she put it, the truth hurt. She kissed the center of Gail's forehead. I don't know, baby. Probably not. Looks like his habits got the best of him. You knew about his gambling? You knew that too? Not at first. Joseph suspected something. Wasn't sure what. He worried himself sick when you went out with Ramsey. I argued with him, said Ramsey was a fine man, mature, responsible, much better for you than Marcus. He wasn't never more than a step ahead or behind your brother's ghost. I didn't want you mixed up in that craziness. Wait a minute. He wasn't never more than a step ahead or behind his brother's ghost. I didn't want you mixed up in that craziness. I don't know what I'll do if Ramsey somehow spread that story about Marcus. Ain't nothing you can do but learn from your mistakes and do better next time. Loretta tucked her straight hair behind Gail's ear. I was already living with you by the time I figured out Ramsey had habits, but he took care of you real good, like you always wanted, and Vanessa was growing up so nice, wasn't nothing to say. I wish I'd known, Mama. You did, Gail. You didn't want to, but you did. So you squinted into the things you didn't want to see were kind of fuzzy and out of focus. It ain't nothing new with men and women. We all do it. Anyway, as much as I hate to admit it, you're a grown woman. What was going on between you and your husband was your business. Mama, Gail rested her head on her mother's knees again. This is going to sound stupid, but do you think I'm being punished for what happened to Freddie? Marcus, too? Maybe Pat, for all I know? If we'd all gone home like we were supposed to? You know it was my fault. I didn't have to use the bathroom. I didn't. It was on accident, Gail. If anybody was to blame, it was Freddie. He was old enough to know better, so don't let this mess make you start looking for extra stuff to blame yourself for. That's a waste of time and energy, and you can't spare neither one. Right after rush hour the next morning, Gail drove to the cemetery. She had missed her regular visit with her father while Ramsey was in the hospital, and now, more than ever, she needed to talk with him and figure out how she was going to make it through. On the long ride from home, Gail remembered her father's words, his laugh, his big bony hands, and how she used to think he could lick anybody in the world. As excited as she exited the highway, she wondered what he'd look like now if, haven't seen you in a while. The florist, a round woman who wore sleeveless shirts year-round, added ferns to the flowers Gail picked out. My time hasn't been my own. That's an understatement. Gail bumped over the railroad track. She followed the road into the cemetery, past Serenity Circle, and parked near the evergreen trees that camouflaged the cemetery fence. She got out and surveyed the oddly tranquil panorama of monuments and the skeletons of Japanese maples and elms that were filling the landscape with reds and greens come spring. Her daddy used to joke, they can bury me at the back of the cemetery, but I'm going to have the best view. Tiptoeing across the grass, careful not to step on anybody's grave, she stopped at the bronze plaque that read Saunders in simple, honest letters. Hey, Daddy. Gail kissed her fingers and traced them across the smaller letters that spelled out Joseph Lemuel. I guess she thought I wasn't coming, but you know I always do. She lifted the vase hidden in the plaque, always averting her eyes from the empty space that was meant for her mother's name, then walked to the spigot for water. When she returned, she knelt and tore open the paper around the gold and burnt orange mums. There's no point in him and hauling. You were right about Ramsey. She arranged the stems one at a time. I still don't want to believe he took off like that. Yeah, I know, everybody's not you. You rescued me last time I was abandoned, but some people got cold hearts and ice in their veins. I just want to know for sure so I can stop loving him. Gail fit the vase into the holder. I'll get us through this, Daddy. I promise. With each verse, she felt stronger, like she always did when she felt her dad with her. I made this bed, and I'll figure out a way to sleep in it. She stood and dusted her knees. I'm taking care of Mama for you, too, Daddy. I never thought Ramsey would take money from her. Her voice cracked, and she looked off in the distance until she could calm herself. Gail didn't like to cry on these visits. Mama's doing pretty good, still forgetful, but she remembers things that happened a long time ago, and she tells Nessa all about you. I wish you could see how much Nessa has grown. The forlorn hoot of diesel train seemed to offer a reply. I know you're with me all the time, Dad, and I'm glad. I couldn't do this without you. Thanksgiving dinner was a deliberate break with tradition. The day was rainy and cold, and Vanessa thought they should stay in their pajamas, so they did. Gail decreed that not one football game will be seen all day. Loretta suggested lasagna, a meal they rarely ate because Ramsey despised it. They ate on snack trays in the den, muddling through anxious moments with teeny laughter, exaggerated politeness, and mock celebration. Gail knew this was the last Thanksgiving in her dream house. She wanted to hate Ramsey as much as she hated herself for letting this happen. Be careful what you ask for. Wherever they were this time next year, she was certain her life had changed forever. Gail applied for Christmas jobs, but the response to her 11-year-old retail experience was a yawn. Even the cash registers were different now. As a last resort, she went to one of the anchor stores where she never shopped because she thought the merchandise was tacky. They hired her to work gift wrap nights and weekends for $4.50 an hour. Gail left home in designer dresses, which disappeared under a red smock once she clocked in. She could switch from her Italian pumps to the flat stashed in her locker so she could stay on her feet for 6 hours. When gift wrap wasn't busy, she boxed packages for delivery. Scissors, ribbon, twine, and industrial-sized rolls of paper pricked, nicked, sliced, and gouged her hands. It hurt her to cut her fingernails short, but they broke and got in the way, and soon she stopped even using polish because it was always chipped. Loretta did laundry and kept the house clean. She offered to take on a couple of days of work a week till things pick up, but Gail wouldn't have it. Gail did her best to tread water, writing checks for the light, heat, and telephone. One afternoon, desperate for more money, she went through her wardrobe and crafted suitcases full of her most expensive clothes to a consignment shop in Greenwich, and she prayed for Vanessa and her mother to stay well, for strength, for Ramsey to be dead, to find a better job, for a dress to be sold so she could buy Christmas presents, for Ramsey to come back, make it okay again, to win the lottery, for her car to last the winter. She kept Vanessa's life on an even keel as much as possible, and one of the bright spots of the season came when Gail and Loretta, swelling with pride, watched Vanessa dance the Snowflake Queen at the annual Christmas recital. Afterward, over celebratory Sundays, Gail tried to explain to her daughter how different holiday gift giving would be this year. It's because of Daddy, isn't it? I hope he never comes back. Gail's efforts to stay afloat were like spit in the ocean. Her bank account sank steadily with no signs of stopping until it hit bottom. But the week before Christmas, she worked 62 hours, 22 at time and a half. She had already been told she wouldn't be kept on after the holidays, but she justified going over budget on her Christmas shopping by using her store discount to buy a cozy robe for her mother and Vanessa's first pair of black leather knee boots. The blue turtleneck covered with big snowflakes was an afterthought, but Gail felt it was too perfect to leave. Gail was on her way to work when the mail carrier rang her bell on Christmas Eve. She got the usual gut knot and opened the door, expecting to sign for another fat envelope with some attorney as the return address. Instead, it was a package wrapped in creased brown paper. She recognized Ramsey's bold script immediately and had barely closed the door before she ripped the paper. I wish Nessa and Mama were home. I knew he wouldn't let Christmas come without a word. Rubber bands held the cigar box shut. He doesn't even smoke. Gail's hand trembled so much she put the box on the foyer table to open it. Wads of newspaper pad at the top. She smoothed the piece. The Gloucester Daily Times, Massachusetts. It was dated December 20th. Underneath lay two smudged Greener Pastures envelopes. She tore open the lumpy one, and Ramsey's diamond horseshoe fell